For this extra on this DVD, we're going to take a look at how we can update one of the scripts that we wrote. We wrote this script here that actually set up, I'll just evaluate it and then run the function, that set up the control object for the blended morph system. This set it up so that we actually had an object that wouldn't pass beyond the boundaries of the rectangle. We had to use custom attribute definition, and we had to play some tricks with list controllers to get it all to work so that it wouldn't go too far. Well, in actual reality, we don't need in Max 8 any of this area at all. Basically, this is all the area that we created the custom attribute definition and connect things together. Now, this worked really well and was a great way to get around things, but it simply isn't needed anymore because we have what is called the limit controller. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this object here and just delete it and just rebuild a circle so it's clean. It doesn't have anything extra in it. And I'll show it to you first about what we're going to be doing. So we would have this sort of setup, and it passes out the outside of it. What we can do is we'll just take the X to start with. I want to say assign controller and say float limit. And the float limit dialog box comes up that now controls the object. It allows us to be able to put in a limit value, high and low. Well, it's pretty easy. What we're dealing with right now is the X values, so that's side to side, and our width of our box is currently 10, so that all we need to do is just simply put in 5 and 5 for half of it. And I guess we should have -5, sorry. -5. So that what it does is it stops it when it gets to the sides. Same thing happens to the Y value. We just need to stop it at 5 and -5. So there's the limit controller, and that is much, much easier to set up, obviously, than the system that we had to use. I'm just going to delete all this, and we're going to set it up from scratch. The float limit controller, it only works on float values. I'm just going to give it a variable of FL, and it is called float limit. And if I evaluate that, it'll actually give us a float limit controller. And if I say show FL, it will show us the parameters that we can set in it. Because what we're going to do is we're going to wire the high and low values to the actual length and width of the box. So it reacts just the same as it did when we set it up with the script controller, that the length and width parameters of the box determine the actual value that it stops at. What we're going to do then is we're going to take the controller for the x-axis and apply this to it. So our control object is the actual circle, which was being called circle. And we're going to say circle dot position dot controller. And we're going to look at the first one in that controller. So let's actually just run some of this code inside so we can see it work as we go. So I'll run all that, and it actually creates the control object and rotates it up to face the front viewport. I'm going to create the float limit, and then let's apply it to the X position. So the first one in this controller is the X. We could have also said .x underscore position, would have returned it as well. 1 will get us there faster, knowing that it's the first one. .controller, if I can spell it correctly, is the actual Bezier float controller. And what we need to do is we actually need to make it the float limit controller. So now that we have the float limit controller on it, you can see it's actually applied the float limit controller to the X position of the circle. So we've applied the float limit controller, and then the next thing we need to do to actually limit it is work with the values. Now, as we saw here, we can use the upper limit we'll start with. We'll say FL dot upper limit equals 5. You can see that it stops when